Chapter 1. What, Where, How and When. Why do we study the past? We study the past to know about our ancestors, the kind of life they led, the societies they lived in. We get to know about the lives and livelihoods of kings, statesmen as well as about ordinary people. While studying the past, we get to know several things like the type of food people ate, the kinds of clothes that they wore, the crops they grew and animals they domesticated, the craft persons and their crafts, the merchants and the trade practices, the kingdoms, empires and their rulers. Thus, by studying history, we get enlightened about our pasts. Thus, history is a study of events of the past. The origin of the term history is from an ancient Greek word historia. This Greek word historia originally meant inquiry, the knowledge that results from inquiry. History deals with the study of political, social, economic, cultural, religious, and military practices. A historian is a person who studies the past or history. A historian basically reconstructs the past based on evidences. Names of subcontinents. India and Bharat are the two names used for our country. The word India comes from the Indus, called Sindhu in Sanskrit. When the Iranians and the Greeks came to India through the northwest about 2500 years ago, they called the river Indus, Indus or Indus, and referred to the land east of the river Indus as Ide, and eventually it became India. Bharatiya was a name used for a group of people who lived in the northwest, and they are also mentioned in the Rigveda. Rigveda is the earliest composition in Sanskrit, dated 3500 years ago. Bharat was later used as a name for our country. Places of settlement. In ancient times, people preferred to live along the banks of rivers. Hunters and gatherers were the earliest people. Hunters and gatherers knew about the plants in the surrounding forests, and so they collected roots, fruits and other forest produce for their survival. They also hunted the local animals. Evidences of people growing crops like wheat and barley about 8,000 years ago have been found in the Sulaiman and Kirthal hills. During this time, people started to rear animals like sheep, goat and cattle, and they also started living in villages. Dates in history. When historians study a particular era, they put the events of a period in a chronology. In other words, as a first step to understand history, they put events in a sequential order: what happened first and what happened later. This chronology of events may be graphically depicted on a timeline. Sources of history. How do we find out about something that took place thousands of years ago? In history, we study different sources that inform us about the events at the most basic level and are used as clues in order to recreate and study the past. To recreate history, we study remains from the past. The remains of the past are studied by archaeologists and historians. Archaeologists and historians study archaeological and written sources. For example, monuments, cave paintings, coins, remains of grains, pots, jewelry, manuscripts, and then reconstruct the past. Like a detective, they put evidences together and recreate the historical scenes of the past. They study archaeological sources and written sources in history. Most of the sources do not talk about the lives of the common people, as common people cannot make monuments, inscriptions, coins. Archaeological sources. Archaeological sources are material evidences. These sources do not really change. These sources are of four types: inscriptions, monuments, artifacts, and coins. Those who study these objects are called archaeologists. Inscriptions. The written records engraved on rocks, paintings and writings on cave walls, Writings on metal pillars, wall of temples and palaces, and on clay and copper tablets are called inscriptions. Mostly, kings got their important achievements in their reign inscribed so that people could be informed. For example, the Ashoka pillars was put up by Emperor Ashoka of the Mauryan dynasty. It gives us an insight into the Ashoka Empire. Monuments. Monuments are those buildings which have historical importance. Such buildings tell us about the period in which they were built. It informs us about the social life, religious beliefs, the culture, and the knowledge of science of the people of that period in which those monuments were built. Temples, forts, palaces, stupas, and monasteries makes the past real. Artifacts. The objects that humans made in the past like pottery, tools, ornaments, metal objects, jewelry, and weapons are called artifacts. Such objects are found by archaeologists during excavations. They give us vital clues to the past. Coins. Coins give us extremely valuable information. It tells us about the ruling period of kings, the economy of the kingdom, the extent of a king's empire, and also about trade practices. Sometimes it also helps us to know about the art and religion of that particular time. Manuscripts. Historians also read books to reconstruct the past. These books are called manuscripts. Many manuscripts were destroyed by insects and other natural factors, but many were preserved in temples and monasteries. These books dealt with all kinds of subjects, religious beliefs and practices, the lives of kings, medicine and science. Besides, there were epics, poems, and plays. Many of these were written in Sanskrit, others were written in Prakrit, languages used by ordinary people, and Tamil. Manuscripts are probably the only source which throws some insight into the life of the ordinary people.